Ladies and gentlemen, now in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the May update to everybody's favourite, slightly controversial Google spreadsheet. So we're going to be talking about the introduction of Shang-Chi, Jabari Panther, and also Silver Centurion, and also the buffs and tune-ups to Black Panther Classic, Mister Fantastic, and Vulture. Not to mention the increases as well to Odin. And I think like the last month, man, has been really good for a lot of champions. But at the same time, like, there are so many characters that have moved out from like the meme tier and occasionally useful tier and are going up the tier list. I've actually been forced to move my camera over to this hand side of the screen. So yeah, like this side is getting like really packed here, and I think we are going to need to like have another column to kind of separate them out or kind of push some champions a little bit back, because again, we're just having like so many really good champions come in and also loads of really solid buffs as well. So yeah, this game, man, it's just getting absolutely crazy. But anyway, before we get into the breakdown, I want to throw out that super fun standard disclaimer that this is a very rough guide to what I personally believe are some of the best characters on a comparative spectrum in Marvel Contest of Champions. The game is like 6.5 years old. There are so many different modes of gameplay. There are literally like thousands of different nodes. There are like 200 characters. It is a very complicated game, and there are so many factors that go into character evaluation. So at the end of the day, again, I've got my opinions based on my own personal experience, and if you have different opinions based on yours, that's absolutely fine. This is literally how we function as human beings. But anyway, now that we've got that super fun standard tier list disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about the 3 new characters. So I wanted to go ahead and include Shang-Chi in this month's update, because I'm big simping for Shang-Chi, man. This character is so much fun to play. He's also like a very dynamic character in terms of his playstyle and rotation, and he's just so much fun to play around with. So let's talk about the big pros for Shang-Chi. So this man has huge burst damage, you got guaranteed critical hits on his strikes, and you also have guaranteed crits on every single hit of the special 2. The special 2 is absolutely monstrous when ramped up. Also, he has easy access to a 20-second slow. You literally just need to do a medium combo, so 2 hits, and then you've got 20 seconds where the opponent cannot evade, trigger unstoppable, and yeah, this is just amazing for so many different matchups there. He also has very easy access to remove 3 debuffs and also absorb the next 4 debuffs of any kind that land on him. So this could be like a shock, incinerate, a bleed, a poison, a stun, some sort of like bad debuff on a certain node. But again, this utility is so incredibly good and also makes him perfect to run alongside the suicide masteries. And because he doesn't have anything else scaling up his attack, like with suicide masteries, the scaling is incredibly good, because his kind of like main damage scaling comes from crit damage, and we'll talk about that in a second. You can also gain unblockable buffs by hitting into the block, and also open up a combo if you do a 4 combo. So yeah, that's like insanely good for playing very aggressive. And also the fact if you throw like a full 5 combo as well, you stun the opponent, and this also triggers through block as well. So he's kind of got 2 ways to open up opponents that are playing like very passive, and in all sorts of matchups where you want to transfer something like Bane or just like find an opening, again, this is just absolutely amazing. So these 2 bits of utility, again, may not like seem amazing on paper, but the practicality of playing around with them is just crazy, man. Like, he's so valuable. And also, for every crit that Shang-Chi lands, he crits even harder, and for a 5-star rank 5, this scales up to like additional 10,000 crit damage once you've landed 300 crits. But basically, like, once you're at like 100 or so, you can really feel like a pretty decent increase there. And also with his chi charges as well, there's just like really good damage ramp up on this character. Also, he can land critical hits through the block with his awakened ability. So if you're fighting node in like Act 7, for example, or a monthly quest, the Invade node, again, this is really good, because Invade, characters that can crit through block, again, you gain like 300% attack, and also you reduce the opponent's block proficiency by 100% as well. So yeah, just an absolute monster for that. He kind of is like, in many ways, a little bit of a skill version of Corvus Glaive that like doesn't run out of steam, because Corvus Glaive, you know, you expand your 20 glaive charges, and then you're kind of like waiting around. But there's no stopping on Shang-Chi. This man just keeps on going and rolling and rolling. He also has the ability to use perfectly timed parries and evades to get additional chi charges to build up more damage on the special 2. And the special 2 damage ramp up is kind of like Guardian in the sense that it's pretty much infinite, but it's also like much easier to get chi charges on Shang-Chi in comparison to Guardian. There is so much more gain. So yeah, he's a lot easier to ramp up there. But yeah, the special 2 damage, again, you can just get it to crazy levels. You know, if you cycle like a few special 3s and are getting those perfectly timed like parries and evades and using all of your strikes, again, you can literally get like 500,000 to 2 million special 2s for Suicide Master. And like on the 6.2 champion fight, the way to play him is just like keep him in that first phase, build up like, you know, 40-60 chi charges, 1 special 2, and then you are straight into the final phase there. So yeah, Shang-Chi's amazing for the champion in 6.2, man. Now with his awakened ability, he's got a really nice benefit from it because it allows all of his critical hits to deal an additional 20% burst of physical damage, and you can also crit through the block as well. So again, those 2 effects are very nice to have. But the really good thing about the awakened ability is it's not absolutely essential. All of the core stuff from Shang-Chi is on the base of the character, like the debuff cleansing, the slow, the guaranteed crits, the massive damage. So yeah, even unawakened, he's still an absolutely amazing character, but it's just like the awakened ability is really nice to have there. And also one huge benefit from Shang-Chi is he's not reliant on any particular synergy. So he's one of those characters that kind of just slots into any team, and those are my favorite characters, man. That's why I love like Doctor Doom, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Hyperion, Warlock, Human Torch, like Quake. There are so many really good characters that kind of just like slot in anywhere. So yeah, Shang-Chi overall, man, is going straight into the Beyond God tier in my opinion. But again, ideally, if you do have Suicide Masteries, you are going to see the most out of this man. He is built around the Suicide Masteries if you do want that really big performance. But again, even without Suicides, dude, he's still like a ridiculously impressive champion. But yeah, I think Shang-Chi is just worthy of that instant Beyond God tier ranking in my opinion. Like, it's just been so long since a champion has just instantly impressed me, and the more we play around with him in like various 6-star videos, again, just the crazier he gets. You can just deal with like every single matchup, man. So yeah, Shang-Chi is just mad impressive, and I really hope to see more characters this year, kind of at the level of just enjoyment and also design of Shang-Chi, because yeah, he's like the benchmark for just a really fun and interesting champion. But then also we have the 2 new Realm of Champions characters that released last month as well, and I think definitely one of them, Jabari Panther, is kind of like instantly just massively overshadowed, at least in my opinion, by Shang-Chi, but at the same time she's still a really good character. But I think Shang-Chi again kind of does like what she does, just a fair bit better, and also brings a little bit more to the table. But for a player that's like early on progressing, picks up Jabari Panther, again, she's pretty nuts as well. So Jabari Panther has absolutely insane burst damage while she's in the hunt mode, and huge amounts of bleed damage. And also with the way that she works, if you trigger various abilities while in the hunt, you not only pause the bleeds, but you also pause the hunt. So if you're playing very aggressive in the right matchup, again, the damage during this phase is absolutely monstrous. She hits like a friggin' truck once you get ramped up. And also one huge thing with Jabari Panther is every single hit applies a cleanse passive, allowing her to remove the next debuff landed. So again, very similar to Shang-Chi's mechanic, like this works for any debuff in the game. So she can counter bleed, poison, shock, stun, incinerate. So yeah, like pretty much any debuff there. Also the degeneration debuff from Enquiries, and whenever degeneration is an actual debuff and not a passive, she does have the ability to counter it there. So yeah, Jabari Panther is really good. Also on her special 1, you can apply an 11-second slow, stopping the evasion. Again, this is alright, but ideally with her rotation, you want to go for like the special 2 or the special 3. Ideally, you do want another Marvel Realm of Champions character on the team when playing around with Jabari Panther, because I found like the best rotation, or the one that I enjoyed the most, was doing like a medium light medium and then medium light medium combo. So essentially like 2-3 combos in a row, because with the Realm of Champions synergy, it gives her like a super long stun duration, and you can also get 2 charges of the hunt from this combo. So yeah, this allows you to like build up to the hunt like very quickly when you can stun the opponent there. Also, during the hunt, she's immune to stun and opponents cannot evade or cause attacks to miss, so she can bypass evade and also invisibility there. And also, she doesn't need to be awakened, but the awakened ability gives her Killmonger's counterpunch charges during the hunt, and also increases the duration of the hunt by 3 seconds. So like even unawakened, she's really good, but the awakened ability, again, is nice to have in certain scenarios. But overall, I think Jabari Panther is a really well-made champion. But again, the fact that Shang-Chi is released like right after her, I think like massively overshadows her in comparison. So yeah, Jabari Panther, again, anybody that gets her as like the first 5 or 6 star champion, or kind of needs her for a specific thing, is going to be overjoyed. Like, she's a really well-made character. But again, I'm big simping for Shang-Chi at the moment. But again, I still think Jabari Panther is so good in terms of the damage and utility that she does bring to the table, that she's very worthy of a solid god tier ranking. Then next up, we got Silver Centurion, who's going straight into the god tier. This man, ideally you want to have him awakened, and also he's a bit of a tricky character to play as well, because you do need to be like super aggressive and super close to the opponent in order to get the max out of him. However, even if you don't go for like the max super sweaty tryhard rotation, again, the damage output and utility is still really decent. So he's got an indefinite armor up buff, which allows him to counter Havoc. He's also immune to bleed and shock as long as the armor buff is active there. Silver Centurion also has this Guardian style mechanic of never critting the opponent, but when you would land a crit, he instead applies a passive shock to the opponent, which then you fuse with your final light attack, and this fuses into a plasma. And then you want to get to your special 2 when you got 4 plasma, and that brings it up to 7, and then you lock onto the opponent, and then you like spam medium attacks to deal like additional burst damage there. And there are also ways that you can kind of get rid of lock on and just build up plasma a little bit more, and then like fire off a special attack if you're playing very aggressively. And you can use this to climb to like 11 to 20 plasma, maybe even more in certain matchups, but it's really tricky to do. So Silver Centurion, I think there's going to be like a certain set of very skilled players that just absolutely master this man. But at the same time, like, he's really tricky to play as well, if you do want to get the absolute most out of him. But the damage ceiling is just like stupidly high. It's kind of like almost Iron Man Infinity War level with the synergies. So yeah, he's got a lot of damage potential, and also again, not critting is really nice in like the Mr. Sinister matchup, and also the Havoc matchup as well for charges. Not that charges like really matter in all fairness, just due to the fact that he does have the armor up buff. He also has a heal block on the special 1. On the heavy attack, you've got a 10-second slow. The slow really isn't the most useful thing out there with this character. It could be a little bit longer. It's kind of weird because like heavy attacks are a bit awkward to throw off, but Shang-Chi, like, he can double medium, and that's like a 20-second slow, which is really good duration, whereas Silver Centurion using heavy attacks kind of takes away from the rotation a little bit. So in the right scenario, again, it can be useful, but it's not really the highlight of the champion's kit in my opinion. But also, one interesting thing is via the special 3, there's also quite a substantial power drain based on the amount of plasma you have on the opponent, and you also do apply a 28-second slow there. So again, in certain matchups, 28 seconds is a really nice duration. I kind of just wish the slow on the heavy attack was a little bit longer, and this was like a 40-second to 60-second slow there. So yeah, if I were to make some changes to this character, I'd make that slow like a little bit higher, but again, you need to play very aggressively and also be very close to your opponent as well to maintain uptime on lock on. But it's also like easier to do because you have 25% additional lock on duration versus mutant characters as well. And again, the final note is like, he's still good without the awakened ability, but for like the bigger damage pushes and also higher plasma climbing, you really do want the awakened ability. So yeah, Silver Centurion, I would say unawakened Awakened is probably like high demi or low demi, but I think Awakened and in the hands of like a really skilled player reaches the god tier level. But he's like a fun character to play about with. So that is it for the 3 new champions. Again, I think all 3 of them are really good additions to Marvel Contest of Champions, and if you pull like any 3 of them as a progressing player, I think they're going to be really useful for a lot of rosters out there. But we also have the fully revamped version of Black Panther. So let's talk about that first before talking about the tune-ups here. So Black Panther now has absolutely fantastic burst and bleed damage once you ramp up to Panther's might. In order to get the most out of Black Panther, you do need like a very aggressive opponent, and he's not really that great in Realm of Legends because the opponent very often doesn't play ball, but for a lot of endgame content like Act 6, Act 7, if we're looking in Labyrinth as well, again, you've got a very aggressive AI to deal with, but the side quest is sometimes a little bit hit and miss. Again, sometimes going to be very aggressive and sometimes a little bit too passive. But also with all the bleeds for certain like Cavalier skill nodes, again, can be very, very nice there. Also, whenever you intercept the opponent, if you do have that Awakened ability, it removes one of each debuff on Black Panther. So again, this is really, really nice to have. If you got the Suicide Masteries, you can just like instantly get rid of them. So yeah, he's got a pretty nice synergy with those as well. And you can also reduce up to 100% ability accuracy. If you're in Panther's Might, this gives you a 50% ability accuracy reduction on the opponent. And also for every bleed that you have, if you've got the Awakened ability, and also the full SIG levels as well, it's a 10% ability accuracy reduction. So yeah, in that mode at 5 bleeds, the opponent can't trigger like any of their defensive abilities. So in certain scenarios, man, this is just absolutely crazy. You know, if we're looking at something big like the Labyrinth of Legends Magic, for example, again, once you get going, you should be able to like never see a limbo proc there. And again, this is just like a really, really good counter to a lot of annoying scenarios. So yeah, that's like a massive pro of his buff as well. He's also got a very good synergy with the Despair Masteries. He stacks up bleeds like crazy. He's also stun immune when striking into auto block. So if you're fighting like Medusa, Nova, any sort of node that triggers stun on auto block, again, very valuable PC utility. And he also now has very easy access to True Strike when intercepting via the Killmonger synergy. And also if you can intercept with a Special 1 and Special 2, and the timing on this is what is it, very tricky to get down, but if you can do it, it's like guaranteed crits and also like additional bleeds on every single hit as well. So there's some mega damage if you can get the timing right on that one. But overall, Black Panther, again, he's just got some really solid base utility. He can deal with debuffs, a huge ability accuracy reduction as well for dealing with all sorts of annoying characters and nodes on top of that. Then next up, we got Odin, who for now I'm going to put in high demi god tier, but I think he does have the potential for a god tier promotion. They've made it so you can actually play this man back to back now. However, there's a pretty solid benefit if you do let him Odin sleep, because then you get an aptitude buff, and that gives you an additional buff for the special 2, and also scales up his fury and armor a little bit more. And also his buffs are now 10-second duration in comparison to 7 seconds, so he's a lot more practical to play than he was previously. However, I think Odin is still like missing an armor break, because armor break is like so important for so many cosmic champions to deal with like annoying nodes and mechanics. Like for example, like the Abyss of Legends. Odin would probably be amazing for Abyss if you could actually armor break like tech opponents and get rid of the node there. And also like the what is it, Cosmic Cavalier node. This month is actually buffed, so he's really good for that because he's loads of buffs. But very often it is the armor break one. So yeah, Odin, I'm going to keep a very close eye on him, but yeah, I do think he has potential for a god tier promotion, because again, the damage feels really, really nice now. It's not like absolutely broken, but it's so much better than it was previously, and again, it's just the rotation being a bit more practical that makes this character very enjoyable to play around with. So yeah, overall, I really do like the Odin buff. I'm just a little bit skeptical that there are so many cosmic champions that do everything that Odin can do, plus a little bit more. So yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this man, but again, I'm not ruling out like a god tier or solid god tier promotion. I just want to see him delivering those results. So yeah, I'm curious to see what comes of Odin a little bit later this year, but again, I do think he has potential to be promoted there. And then we have Vulture. So Vulture is now with various synergies, dude, just an absolute utility beast. You got crazy power control, you've got Armor break, armor up, you've got incinerate immunity, you also have the various synergies, shock immunity, and also poison immunity as well. I took this man in my like first look video with the Warlock synergy against the Mr. Sinister boss in 6.2, and he absolutely melted that boss. Any scenario where there's just like a huge amount of power gain, his power burn on the special 2 is just absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, there's like a lot of cool stuff Vulture can do now. He was always like pretty good for the utility, but also his buff has just made it so much easier for him to gain his Jatari charges depending on the matchup, because if you're triggering like a debuff that he's immune to, then yeah, he just like instantly gets fully topped up to 100 off one debuff there. So yeah, Vulture is just, he's popping off now in all sorts of like weird scenarios, but he's just at the same time like a very weird and quirky utility character. So yeah, I think there's going to be stuff in the future where Vulture is just like absolutely broken for, but I think in the average matchup, like he's still like a fairly mid character for the most part, but again, he's just so versatile now in terms of the amount of utility that you can get from this man, that I think like he's definitely a character that's going to appear on a lot more radars now. So yeah, Vulture's just fun, man. He's a really cool champion. And then next up we got Mr. Fantastic. Now Mr. Fantastic, I actually did a video testing this man out with full synergies, and then did some testing off video the other day without any synergies. And without any synergies, man, he feels like he did previously with full synergies. So he's actually still really, really good without any of the fantastic full synergy. And with the pre-fight and utility that he brings to the table, again, I still think he's a really solid character. The thing that like holds Mr. Fantastic back for me is the rotation in some scenarios is still like a little bit clunky, and sometimes in very stressful scenarios, at least for me, feels a tad impractical, because you need like a lot of heavy spam, ideally in the corner, to play like very, very aggressively as well. So yeah, Mr. Fantastic, he does have some like really, really good power suppression, so I think he has strong potential for a promotion at some point in the future, but I just want to see like more content in the next like 1 to 2 months of Mr. Fantastic just absolutely destroying stuff for players in like 7.2 relevant endgame content. I want to hear like loads of good stuff as well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on Mr. Fantastic, because I'm a little bit hesitant to promote him. One thing I kind of felt testing out this man is just like other science options were a bit quicker and a bit more effective, just due to the fact that the rotation is still like you got a special 2, then another special 2, you got your 3 sets of debuffs on the opponent, and then you go for special 3. And the awakened ability certainly does help because you have like additional power gain there. However, at the same time, for a lot of stuff in Act 6, Act 7, there are like loads of additional science characters and other characters from different classes that can end fights much faster in comparison. So yeah, he's still a little bit slow on the ramp up, but again, once you get to that ramp up in the right scenario where you can parry, getting your heavy attacks, heavy counters, and that's one thing that's a little bit annoying as well, is his heavy attack still does have some very low reach for a super flexible character, so there's very often like heavy whiffing as well. So yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant to promote Mr. Fantastic, but at the same time, I'm very curious to see like what is going to come of this champion moving forward, because again, I think if we get into like later Act 7 and there are beefier health pools and it's kind of like the right range of between like 600 to 1,000,000 health, and this kind of really allows him to you know, ramp up and then pop off, and this just be like the perfect scenario to showcase his damage and him to really like overtake other options, again, then I might reconsider. But yeah, my opinion is he's just a little bit slow on the ramp in comparison to other characters, but again, once he gets going, dude, the damage is absolutely insane now. So yeah, Mr. Fantastic, again, he does have that potential moving forward, but I just want to see that potential at the forefront of endgame players' rosters. So yeah, I'm very, very curious to keep a bit of an eye on him as well there. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the May tier list update. So if you did enjoy today's breakdown, please do smash that like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. But thank you all very much for watching. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.